That would be bad. It should be a perk of the show. Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians and lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host. We're broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast. I say this to people all the time. If you want to know what the left wing does, the radical leftists do when they take over governments, especially governments that are leaning red or states that lean red, just look what's going on in Minnesota. And we're going to get into that with a special guest who'll be joining us via Zoom, Walter Hudson, representative from Albertville. I think a lot of our show fans would know who he is. So he'll be joining us at about roughly 1:30 p.m., I think, when he's done with the meeting. We got so much to discuss. We couldn't do this without our sponsors today, which is Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud and Warren Wessel of Warren Wessel Realty. If you're buying a home, selling a home, go with somebody you can trust, someone who thinks like you politically and is a damn good realtor. He's my realtor. That's how I know that. It's Warren Wessel. Give him a call at 612-419-7453. We actually have a new sponsor that's coming up. Not ready to go today, but there is a hint on my set who it is. I'll leave it there. Joining me as always is MAGA Jesse. How you doing there, buddy?
Doing good. And yeah, we got a great show lined up here today because we're going to be giving an update on Otter Tail County and the entire mess that's going on there. Hopefully we can make votes count again. We got MNGOP retirements within the legislature. We've also got an attack on religious freedom. And like you said, going to have a great guest with Walter Hudson.
Reading your comments, which I see there are already a lot, is the lovely Bridget. How you doing, Bridget?
I am doing fabulous. We already have a rumble rant for you, Jake. $10 from Love, Minnesota says nice haircut.
What do you think?
Jake
is it a
D.
good haircut? It
Yeah,
went real short on
notice
this
it.
one. Thank
Is
you
that
so
shorter
much.
than normal?
I don't know. Here's the thing. My hair grows really fast, and I get it. I hear myself saying it to you guys that don't have that problem. Okay? I'm sorry. God granted me the gift of fast-growing hair. I need a haircut like every 3 weeks. And so if I go on 4 weeks, it gets really bad, and then you just notice it. So thank you, Love Minnesota. Hopefully we'll get into more stuff on this show than just my damn haircuts, which are really not that interesting of a topic.
We have a lot of people here.
Let's
T-Wall for Life says good afternoon. Oh, it just jumped. Where'd it go?
Hi, T-Wall.
On my phone.
By the way, I don't see K-Wall that much these days. Is
K-Wall may join later, it says. He says.
Oh, great.
Wait, which one's he, she?
T-Wall's a she.
T-Wall is she. Okay.
Yep, we got to make sure we get our pronouns right.
But we have Bad at Harry, Brad Ganser, J.L. Jass, Alley Cat Tucker, and a questionable username.
What's the questionable username?
Frustrated AF, essentially.
Oh. We're not going to start the swearing thing already,
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Elusive Butterfly. Is that a new person?
No, I've seen that one before. Elusive Butterfly, good afternoon.
Well, thank you so much. I love it. I love our audience. And Brad Ganser asked if we're doing a show today because of the storms. We're actually having winter in Minnesota. And, yeah, of course, we're going to do it. Although I probably wouldn't have came in the office if it wasn't for the show. But we want to come here live for you guys. And by the way, I assume a lot of people are at home anyhow, so they want to watch the show today, right? Got nothing else going on? They're going to work? Bridget Swear Jar, Tucker says. Good to see you, Tucker. Running the dials as always, Mr. Deep State himself, Dawson.
Good morning, gamers.
It's afternoon, by the way.
Shoot.
It's morning for gamers.
Okay. I think, if I could just do a little monologue here real quick. I listen to a lot of different podcasts out there, okay? Probably the one that I put the most time into is Joe Rogan. And Joe Rogan's done podcasting, what was it, 2010-ish somewhere? He's not the OG, but he's pretty close to it, All right, so he's been at it for a long time. I've actually podcasted since 2014, which makes me a dinosaur in this game, right? But, eventually I think people find their voice. Joe Rogan found his voice over time, and he's the biggest guy in media. I mean, I think they've signed a $250 million contract. It's something ridiculous. So eventually the shows either find their voice or they kind of die. I think our voice is to be something to talk to people who are grassroots oriented. The way I look at my political beliefs these days is I'm just against the global elites. I'm against the ruling powerful, and I'm for the common guy because I just feel like I'm a common guy. I don't think there's anything enormously special in me. I have two talents in this world that I'm really, really good at. One is backing up vehicles. The other one is the crab walk. That doesn't get me far in life, by the way. What?
We have a couple comments that say this. Glenn Cotton says sounds like a cable and the mic isn't connected all the way.
That me?
Tango Foxtrot says there's some reverb going on, and then Tucker says mic buzz.
It's not reverb. I'm pretty sure that I solved it already. If you're still hearing it, let me know. If it's still happening, I'll come in there and I'll work with the cables really quick.
Okay, Tasco Hansen, is that a new person? I don't think I've seen that
one. I think so.
One. Well, welcome,
At least in the
Tasco
comments.
Hansen. I love it. I love new followers and new fans. Okay, hopefully we fixed it. Someone give us a thumbs up if we fixed it here. But anyhow, I think you got to find your voice. So I think our voice is, standing up for the grassroots against the global elites, the ruling politician, the political class, the people that lie all the time, and then bringing people news they're just not going to get anywhere else. And I think what you're going to find in this show today is we're going to talk a lot about things you're just not going to get from the corporate media. And so the first story is what's going on in the corruption in the Minnesota GOP. Now, I know so much on this topic because, I have a gazillion conversations with people in the know. And I know you guys have probably listened to our shows on Otter Tail County. But just a short, quick cliff notes here is the Republican Party chair of Minnesota just decided by himself to disenfranchise the voice of hundreds of delegates. He blames it on chaos at caucus. It's still there. It's Dawson's fault. We have any idea what it is, Dawson?
I do have an idea. I'm going to get out there and keep talking.
You got to, so you did something on set, he's thinking. All right, so we're going to try to fix this thing. Dawson's actually going to come on set and try to fix things. So I'm going to try to power through. I have no idea if it's impossible to hear what I'm saying. It sounds like it's just like a noise.
One of these cables just aren't connected all the way.
Oh, okay. Well, you could have told us all to do that, right?
I don't trust you guys to touch my stuff.
He doesn't trust us to do the work. It's unbelievable.
I
Is
think
it
it's
fixed
probably
now?
smart of him.
Oh, so he's fixing MAGA Jesse. Could also be that one.
Well, I muted his mic and it stopped on my end, so I'm figuring that it's one of these ones.
Gotcha.
Dawson, you should zoom in on Jesse's socks. when you
Well,
get
he
back.
can't do it. Right? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, what's going on with socks?
Oh, I'm
Wait,
not
what-
even sure which one's. Oh, yeah, Benjamin Franklin.
Oh, we got Benjamin Franklin.
There we
And it's
go.
green, so it looks like it's money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not so bad, so keep rambling, Jake. Sounds okay from here. Okay, I'm going to keep rambling. So Otter Tail County Chairman David Hand, MNGOP, decides to just disenfranchise hundreds of delegates, okay? And if you don't know Minnesota's caucus system, essentially anyone can participate into the political process by choosing a major political party and go to the precinct caucuses. Now imagine you have a corrupt party. Can you imagine that for a second? It might be hard to imagine that. Can you imagine that for a second? Okay, that didn't take long. You guys can imagine that. So how do you fix a corrupt political party? You energize a base of support at the lowest levels possible, that being a precinct. That's what a precinct is. It's the lowest political entity usually in the United States. Maybe there's some place around the country that's not that way, but in Minnesota, the precinct's the lowest political entity. And then you extract from that, you go up to like a House district, then you go to Senate district, then a congressional district, and then you have state. But precinct is the lowest level of a political entity. So you get a bunch of people to go to caucus, and anyone can participate. This year it was on February 27th. And you choose who you want being delegates. That's like basically the representatives of your precinct. And so Otter Tail County, which has a very sketchy leadership, the Otter Tail County GOP, very sketchy leadership. It's run by a guy named Tommy Miracle. I don't know much about this guy. All I do know is the fruits of his labor, which is he basically supports a group called the Jobs Coalition, which goes up against conservative endorsed candidates to the point where, like Mark Bashofsky, I think they spent $100,000 against Mark Bashofsky in the primary. They lost, but they did that, and they worked against Mike Weiner, who was the endorsed candidate. Both Mike Weiner's actually a state representative right now, and they worked against Eric Mortensen, the president of Action for Liberty, back when he was there. Good point about corporate media. Without the show, I wouldn't be informed about MNGOP corruption, says T-Wall. Well, I appreciate that. And no one's talking about this issue. That's the crazy thing. Alpha News won't even talk about it. And I'm like, we're going to have Walter on today, and we're going to talk about the problems with the left. But it's like, why even go into what the Democrats are doing in the Capitol if there's so much corruption on the Republican side? Discipline's got to start at home. So anyhow, we reported here that the state executive committee, it's 15 members of, it's like the inner team, the inner decision makers of the Republican Party of Minnesota. And they decided, I think we're going on 2 weeks now, to stand up a special task force, and they suspended David Hand's unilateral decision to just basically not acknowledge any of these grassroots delegates. So stand up this task force to find out who were delegates and then basically reinstate these people so that they can continue on in the process. Okay, now what's this all about? I've said this before in the show, and if you are following us on Locals, by the way, like and subscribe to this show, tells the algorithm to share with others. I forgot to say, we already had a Rumble Rant, but if you want to interrupt at the same time, Rumble Rants, and then click on join us on Locals. Now, if you're a paid subscriber, you get exclusive content, the after show. We're going to dish a little insider information, so that's the reason you want to join our insider. And then we extend the show into the after hours on Locals, okay? It's a social media company. We're starting to put our time and investment into it. We should talk about True Social today, by the way.
Yeah. What's going on in True Social?
$4 billion evaluation, or
yeah. Oh yeah, it's looking good for.
But that's a joke, right? Like,
maybe, but I don't know about that because just like the GameStop thing, there's going to be a lot of Trump people.
But you're making my point there. GameStop was not valued at the market cap it hit.
Only according to the investors, according to the people, it was worth that amount. So
no, it wasn't. That's why it then imploded, right? I saw that one coming from.
No, but that was because they. Whatever the app was, Robinhood or whoever was preventing people from being able to invest in it.
Oh my God, we will have a really fun conversation on this one. Yeah, let's hold that one for extended hours.
Well, that's the thing, markets, it's determined by what the people decide the value of something is. So
fair to a point, but eventually
True Social, and it is a valuable platform. It's huge, and just to be able to have access to that amount of voters who and their information and everything, that's huge. I would not be surprised for it to be worth $1 billion upwards.
Isn't it like $6 billion and Trump's worth $4 billion of it or something like that? Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry, get off topic. And there's other people talking about that one. So let's get back to this thing on MNGOP. So essentially, this task force's job was to determine who were delegates. This all really mattered. Where this really comes into play, and this is what I think, but I'm just gonna say this is conjecture. Okay, this is opinion. But you guys are going to believe me when I say this. Otter Tail County is 10% of Congressional District 7 delegation, okay? So basically everyone goes to caucus, then they go to something called a BPOU, which are usually counties in rural Minnesota, and then they select a smaller group of delegates who then go on to become delegates for a congressional district, and that congressional district determines who becomes the endorsed Republican candidate. And in Congressional District 7, that's Michelle Fischbach, okay? Rhino Michelle Fischbach, okay? She's basically got a challenger that's doing a very good job. Steve Boyd. We've had him on the show before. Like right after pretty quickly after he made his big public announcement. He's a good guy. I like the guy a lot, okay? From the times I've met him. So he's actually giving her a run for the money. And Otter Tail County is 10% of the Congressional District 7 delegation, and they're grassroots conservatives who probably aren't going to support Michelle Fischbach. So if you want to know why the guys like David Hand are putting so much time and energy in getting rid of this voice, is because they probably realize with Otter Tail County being a delegation at the CD7 convention, which is April 27th, they might actually endorse Steve Boyd instead of Michelle Fischbach. And that is massive news.
Right. The only thing that Michelle Fischbach has is the Trump endorsement, which means that obviously her team and, Trump's team were dissuading Trump into thinking that she was some sort of conservative, that she was going to be fighting for him in Congress. So I think Trump got tricked on that when obviously, he must think that, Michelle Fischbach is going to help him get votes in Minnesota. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he got, I think that it's a lot of the endorsement for endorsement. So she endorsed him, in the fake way where all the Minnesota Republican congressmen all came together and did it at the same time. Included in that was globalist rhino Tom Emmer. So I think it's just a repaying of favors, but that's the only thing she has. If you look at the issues, if you look at especially on the grassroots where Steve Boyd and her are standing on Otter Tail County, it's night and day.
Yeah, and Michelle Fishbach has not said anything about Otter Tail County. Steve Boyd has. Reinstate those delegates. You see the problem? Now imagine you're a congresswoman. This is the thing. Trump's endorsement. I see Freedom Junkie. Is that a new follower?
I think I've seen one as well. Yeah,
Okay. Well,
but they do say
damn,
thanks
we
for
always
covering
assume
MNGOP issues.
we always assume gender, right? Freedom Junkie's a him, right? That's what we assume. We don't know this. This is discrimination. Minnesota Human Rights Act. Walter will set the record correct on that. So basically, Trump's endorsement, it's his team. Like, Trump doesn't know anything about it. You think he knows who Michelle Fishbach is or gives a crap? It's his team. They're playing politics. So whatever, and I personally don't care. Maybe some people care, but you see the two people, you see there's difference. But what's really obvious about the two is, one, Michelle Fishbach has not made a statement standing up for the grassroots. And it's maybe a damned if you do, damned if you don't for her, right? But she should make a statement. Like, this is your congressional district and hundreds of people have been disenfranchised and you're not going to say anything about that, Michelle Fishbach? That's insane. Like, imagine a poll, 200 people were pushed away and you can't vote. I would imagine Michelle Fishbach would make a statement on that. Maybe she wouldn't. I would imagine she would.
Right.
This is like the same thing. This is people's voice in the political process. Where are you on this one, Michelle Fishbach? I know Eric Mortensen's called her out on Twitter, but there's no statement whatsoever. Now, here's another wrinkle in this whole thing. The Congressional District 7 chairman is Craig Bishop. Craig Bishop is a paid staffer for Michelle Fishbach. Line number 8 there, Dawson. This is off of Legistorm, the website that shows people who are on staff and salaries. This is Craig Bishop. So he runs Congressional District 7, and you can see right here, he's a paid staffer for Michelle Fishbach, which means it's basically taxpayer money. I think it's $81,000 a year or something like that. Probably a district director, does it say up there? Can't really read the screen. Does it say casework manager? Is that what it says? Positions casework manager. Are my eyes going bad all of a sudden?
No, it does say that.
Casework manager. Okay, yeah. $81,000 a year, something like that. Okay, so there you go. The guy that's supposedly in charge of the congressional district endorsing convention is a paid staffer for Michelle Fishbach. Now, doesn't that sound like a big conflict of interest on that one? I mean, like,
It's huge.
don't you think he's going to be, I don't know, heavily biased in one direction? Now, I've heard Steve Boyd is not getting the delegate list, which they should give the delegate list. You know why he's not getting the delegate list? Because he didn't sign a pledge to abide by the endorsement and not go to the primary. Now, generally speaking, I'm a pro-endorsement guy. Abide by the endorsement. Steve Boyd had a smart idea. I'm not going to sign this pledge unless I know that this is a process that's been followed to the law. And good for him, because guess what just happened? He learned they just disenfranchised 100, 200 people's voice. They can't even be delegates now.
Yep.
And I'm going to get to you on why the MNGOP is heavily failing these people. Let's go to the comment section here real quick before I carry on.
Failed candidate says, looks like Bishop is part of the grifter class. Andy Parrish says, $81,000 a year for a district casework manager is unheard of.
Is that, well, so Andy would know this. Andy was chief of staff for a congresswoman. So that's, but see, Andy, you were there like over a decade ago. Is that the going rate nowadays? Because of inflation. I mean, people just don't get paid the same they did a decade ago. But I'm curious. I don't even know what they do.
Yeah, I don't know. We have Laser Jim in the comments from Gaylord, and Tucker says, Trump endorsed or not, CD7 will elect a Republican no matter what. Heavy red district.
Correct. Yeah. It's more for the well, what's the timing of this endorsement? Let's be honest. It's to try to sway delegates. Let's just be honest. That's exactly what it is. So Trump's campaign, his handlers are trying to tilt things in favor of that. All right. So you got Craig Bishop. Obviously, how can you preside over a convention? You're not even giving the delegate list to Steve Boyd, which he should be made. They should be made available to Steve Boyd. Why would he sign a pledge when you guys are literally interfering in the process of how delegates get made? Do you see the problem here? Like, we can't fix corruption in the MNGOP or any Republican Party when you just disenfranchise the voice of people that can fix those problems. You see how the
Well, it's
swamp
just like these
protects itself?
kangaroo courts. It's just like the lawsuits with Trump. It's like we don't respect them. We don't respect the rulings or the judgments or anything because we can tell the cake is already baked. It's exactly like this with CD7. If you can tell that the person who's going to be chairing the convention is getting paid by Michelle Fischbach, guess what? She's probably going to win it. So I can't blame Steve Boyd for saying, no, I don't think I'm going to sign a piece of paper that says I'll abide by a phony and potentially skewed and unfair convention.
A finer point hasn't been made, young Jesse. He's just saying young William, who was on the show last Thursday, which was great.
Nice.
MAGA Jesse. A finer point hasn't been made, MAGA Jesse. By the way, would you, Trump endorsed Fischbach. Would MAGA Jesse endorse Steve Boyd?
Sure. I don't know if my endorsement carries a whole lot of weight.
Oh,
but,
it will. It will.
But it's more an anti-endorsement of Fischbach is where my mindset is at.
Well, I want the headline, though. MAGA Jesse goes against Trump's endorsement.
Yeah, right. That'd be something.
Yeah. All right. What's Whiskey Tango Foxtrot have to say?
Who can we replace him with to chair the CD7 convention?
Good question. I don't know. There's probably a ton of people that could do it.
How do you do that? Is there a process, or you just
Sure. Yeah. I
Oh.
mean, he's probably not going to do it. He might not even be chairing the convention. Who knows? Is he chairing the convention? But he's in charge of Congressional District 7. Like, you shouldn't have a vote. Like, shouldn't we just say at this point that if you're working for the congressperson, you shouldn't be in leadership in that congressional district? It just seems to be a massive conflict of interest. It's an incumbent protection racket. Okay, so where we are right now with the MNGOP. The MNGOP met last Thursday night, the State Executive Committee. Now, mind you, a week beforehand, they actually stood up a committee or a task force, whatever you want to call it. I've heard both terms, to determine who were the delegates. Pull up this article on line 7, Dawson. This is, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com to learn more about this. And in this committee that was stood up, David Hand had the sole discretion on who's on the committee. And it turns out that nobody in the State Executive Committee is allowed to know who's on the damn task force. Now, it just boggles my mind how you can get 14 people. 15th person would be David Hand, so we'll take him out of this equation. So 14 people hear David Hand himself say, I'm not going to tell you who's on this committee that you guys voted for, and just don't go, well, that's fucking bullshit. Like, you need to be fired for this.
Yeah.
By the way, another secret meeting that the public isn't allowed to go to, okay? So we don't allow the public to see it. We don't even allow the state exec to know who's on it. Eric Mortensen, the President of Action for Liberty, and we leaked that audio last week, he's the state central delegate. He asked David Hand who's on the committee. He doesn't get to know. And it turns out, and if you look at this tweet from Tim Miller, who's Congressional District 7's representative on the State Executive Committee, he says, I am on the task force. I really don't know who else is until we meet. So, A, he doesn't know who else is on the damn task force he's on. And B, they aren't even meeting.
Yeah.
This is a facade.
What do you mean they're not even meeting?
They're not meeting.
Until when?
Bridget, they're not going to meet ever.
Oh,
and
really?
even if they meet, it doesn't matter because of this email that went out to Otter Tail County delegates. Get a little fired up here.
Mm-hmm.
This is from Anna Matthews. She is she's the executive director. This is a really bizarre relationship. She basically talks for David Hand. You met with David Hand last fall or something like that?
And Anna, yeah.
And you said it was like 90% Anna, like David didn't even talk.
Oh, yeah. I mean, she's the spokeswoman. She's the one who's just trying to play cover, and it's pretty embarrassing. I could never imagine being that kind of person. You know, she's obviously just toting the line. She's carrying his water, and I don't understand why, because, really what they're doing is they're destroying the Republican Party. They're dividing the Republican Party. They don't want the party to grow because anybody who's experiencing what they're experiencing in Otter Tail County right now, where they're having their delegate status questioned, even though they did everything right, what are they going to say? They're going to say, I want nothing to do with this party because the MNGOP is so corrupt, and who can blame them for thinking that?
Yeah.
Well, and we got really big issues going on at the Capitol. We're going to bring Walter Hudson on soon to talk about an attack on religious freedom. You're taking groups like us who are always going to stand up for the grassroots, hundreds of delegates. You're taking us off the table, focusing on that, so we focus on the corruption internally. That's what David Ann's doing. We should be unified. They always say we need unity. Oh, those Action for Liberty people don't want unity. Bullshit. We'll take unity right now. You just reinstate these delegates, and we're unified against the radical leftist agenda. So we're going to talk about that too. But I want to get to this letter from Anna Matthews. Now remember, she's talking to the Otter Tail County delegates. Good afternoon. Please see below for a brief update on the Otter Tail County caucuses. This is sent out at 5 o'clock, I think, on Sunday. Following Chair Hand's email on March 5th, the State Exec Board held an emergency meeting on March 12th. This meeting was called by Chair Hand. By the way, it's like it wasn't really. It was forced on him, and then he called it. Yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. At the emergency meeting, the majority of the board voted to suspend the chair's decision and create a special committee to review the documents that were completed on caucus night. On Thursday, by the way, Action for Liberty went up there. We filmed it on, what was that, 2 Fridays ago, Dawson, right?
Yep.
We saw the documents. Wendy Phillips, who's on the state exec committee, went up there too. We saw the documents that Friday. Once again, they haven't met. The task force has not met yet. We've already gone up there and seen the documents. And by the way, the documents are also available on Google Drive. At this time, the members of that special committee will not be publicized. Given the hundreds of emails, calls, and texts that our board members received in the past 2 weeks. By the way, thank you guys. That was you. Thank you for doing that. It is not in the best interest of the volunteer grassroots people who will be on the committee to receive the same deluge, or in the best interest of a fair and unbiased outcome if they are being influenced or unfairly pressured by any outside group. Well, boy, isn't that a bunch of bullshit?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, we're just going to...
Don't try to hold them accountable. Don't try to influence people who have any sort of power. I mean, what is she talking about? That's the most ridiculous thing in the world to say, you know, outside groups, you know. Action for Liberty is the only group that's actually trying to help these Otter Tail County delegates. So it's not outside groups. It's the grassroots that wants to see something done.
Okay. At this time, the members of that special committee will not be published. Oh, I read that already. Okay. Once the special committee has met and arrived at a recommendation for next steps, the exec board will have another emergency meeting to review the recommendation. Now, get ready for this. This is where it gets interesting. Once the exec board has reviewed and either accepted or rejected the recommendation, their vote will be conveyed to the Otter Tail County BPOU. Now, remember, the Otter Tail County BPOU, run by Establishment Acts, Tommy Miracle and gang, okay? People that do not like the grassroots. Please keep in mind that there is nothing in the MNGOP's constitution or bylaws that allows the exec board to force any BPOU to accept any recommendation of this sort. The only reason that Chair Han and the party stepped into the situation in the first place was because the Otter Tail board and the CD7 board invited us in with hopes that a neutral review of caucus documents would reduce some of the ongoing rancor. They were willing to accept our guidance and our initial recommendation, which was made in conjunction with the party's legal counsel, which is Read the Bull, the crummy lawyer that attacked us in the CFB complaint. So with the legal counsel, CD7, and the Otter Tail County Board, not unilaterally as many are claiming. Oh, yeah, well, she doesn't want to say who is claiming it. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's us. But there is nothing that will guarantee that whatever the special committee decides or whatever the exec board votes on will actually be implemented in the BPOU. So in other words, we're not going to tell you who's on the committee. We're not going to actually have the committee meet at any time in the expedited fashion. And then whatever the committee comes up with doesn't fucking matter because the board, the crummy establishment, sorry, put my tip jar over, or my cuss jar, but they're just going to not listen to what the recommendation is and go on with business disenfranchising hundreds of people in the political process. That's your GOP, folks.
Yeah.
That is, these guys are so damn corrupt. And the state exec committee seems to be doing jack shit about it. Now, I know there are good people on that committee trying to do something, but there's 15 votes. Get rid of Hans' vote, doesn't matter. Actually, get rid of Donna Bergstrom and Lee Prinkla because their noses are so far up Hans' butt they can't even see and smell. Mm-hmm. Well, let's not get into that. But there's people on that committee that can actually take action now and solve this problem. Why aren't they doing it? How on earth? And by the way, I heard in this committee, David Hand spent about an hour complaining about Action for Liberty and who the leaker is on the exec board to Action for Liberty. Because the most pressing thing in this whole matter is somebody's trying to be transparent. Like, it's unbelievable. Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Dictator David. Yes, I don't see any difference between David Hand and freaking Tim Walz during emergency powers, right? They just literally do as I say. It's my way or the highway. All right, let's go to the comment section here. Get a little fired up about this.
Razzadazzle says there's not an MNGOP anymore. And he says Han is the board. And T-Wall says, I don't want the type of unity in the DFL where the public persona is to go along to get along. And he also asks, how are they funded? If most people aren't donating anymore, how are they funded? Like, how are they have?
Well, that's another interesting. That's a great question. I mean, we could go into the finances of the MNGOP, but a substantial portion is by big donors. Like, if you look at their book, Steve Wynn of Wynn Vegas Casinos is a donor to the MNGOP. Why is that? You know, you just got to wonder, why are these big donors given to the GOP? This is the thing, is the MNGOP is not mostly funded by the grassroots, the average guy. Like, I would say Action for Liberty has more grassroots donors than even the GOP. So you're probably beholden to your donor base, right? And these people don't want, Brad Gibbs says, Emmer funded. Yeah, probably Emmer's bundling money and getting it to the party. And by the way, not doing it very well. They're probably doing just enough to let them operate, but so that they're still desperate, which is what David Hand is. He's just desperate. So he's putting all his time and energy into it. And you guys, especially you guys up in Otter Tail County, are really getting disenfranchised. Your voice is being disenfranchised. So pull up this article again. Here's the thing. Fishbach should be answering about this. You've got a sitting congresswoman who is seeing hundreds of her constituents are being disenfranchised. Where the hell's Michelle Fishbach? That's her handle at FishbachMN7. This is her campaign phone number, 320-593-3145. And you can, I just looked on the website. It says info@fishbachforcongress.com is a campaign email. You probably have other emails too, some of you
We
guys.
have a Rumble Rant from K-Wall for Life, $24. Says, speaking of grassroots donor, cheers.
Nice.
There
Cheers
we
to you,
go.
K-Wall. And it's been a while. I don't think K-Wall's been on a lot of comment threads lately. So,
Yeah,
but
we
his
like
better half
having you.
has.
Yeah, good to have him back.
Yeah, good to have you back. I'm sure K-Wall's stuck at home. So what happens is K-Wall and T-Wall, do you guys have different offices? How does this work? Do you guys have to sit at desks right next to each other? Do you know? No, just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, voters definitely need to demand Fishbach takes a stand on this. You know, she needs to make it clear that, the convention is not going to be corrupt. That's the only thing that people want. People just want fairness. If there's fairness, usually people will accept the results of what happens. But she needs to take a stand because this is her district, this is her voters, this is her constituents, and it's her responsibility.
100%.
K-Wall says they have, offices 2 floors apart.
There you go. That's how it works. Do we have Walter Dawson? We do?
Yep.
Oh, well, you're never going to give me a little heads up that we had Walter?
No.
How much of my diatribe did Walter have to listen to?
I bet he liked it.
What's that?
I bet he liked it.
I'm sure he did. All right. Joining us for the first time on the show, I think, Walter, you haven't been on the Truth Hurts show, but you did do the first episode of, what is it, Icebreakers?
Oh my gosh, you don't remember your show? Yeah,
Well,
Icebreakers.
So, Walter, we were going to do another season of Icebreakers, but unfortunately, global warming stopped the state of Minnesota from having reliable ice in the metro area.
Well,
But-
who knows? I mean, it's looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, I know, right? My God, you're never in the clear until probably mid-May in this state. And even then, you get those big mounds of snow. So I didn't bring you on the show to talk about the Republican corruption because, when it comes to the Capitol, the Republicans are in the minority. And so you get to see firsthand, and this is what I always say at the beginning of a show, is that we're in the belly of the beast. Like if you're from Texas or you're from, South Dakota, Montana's probably a really good example. which is a red state, but it doesn't have to be red. It could go swing more Democrats. Amazing, Democrats actually get elected in that state. And so this is what happens when Democrats take over the full form of government, the three positions. Well, let's be honest, they do have the three branches. They also have the judiciary, right? So this is what you get total control by Democrat Party. And then they come, and the way I look at this, they come for the social agenda that they've always talked about in the radical elements, which we would call the Metro Democrat Party or the Metro Democrats. And so they're now tweaking with religious freedom. We talked about this a year ago when they tweaked the Minnesota Human Rights Act. Tell us a little bit more about the story. I watched you speaking in front of a church, I think it was just last Sunday, on this issue. Tell us what's going on at the Capitol.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it takes a little bit more than an elevator pitch to get through the background. But basically, we have this Human Rights Act that was enacted in 1993 here in the state of Minnesota that defines protected classes, the kind that you would expect to see: race, color, creed, sexual orientation is one of them. And that one in particular, sexual orientation, was placed in a religious exemption to the Human Rights Act at the time. And what that means is that if you're a church, synagogue, mosque, what have you, faith-based organization like a Minnesota Teen Challenge or something along those lines, you are exempt from claims of discrimination and being sued based on sexual orientation. That's the way it was between 1993 and 2023. In 2023, last year, they changed the Human Rights Act to create a new protected class for gender identity. And previously, that had been included within the concept of sexual orientation. And so by separating those two, pulling them apart and having a separate category for gender identity, and then not placing that new protected class also in the religious exemption, effectively what they did was repeal the religious exemption for gender identity. That's basically what they did. They did it in a very clever way that people didn't notice at first. But once people did notice it, once religious groups caught on to what the effect of the change in law was, they worked behind the scenes with the Department of Human Rights and some of our members in the minority to try to quietly negotiate a fix. And the vehicle that they were going to use to try to achieve that was what's called a policy bill. So all these departments, there are changes in law in a budget year that have an impact upon the way that the departments work. And so there's usually some sort of cleanup because we are dealing with human beings. There's usually technical errors, typos, commas that are in the wrong place, chapter citations and whatnot. And so in the following year, they'll bring these policy bills or technical bills, agency bills, they call them. They're usually pretty sleepy, boring affairs that are non-controversial. Well, in this case, the controversy comes not from what's in this bill, this policy bill, but from what's not in it, which is a fix to this religious exemption issue from last year. That was something that has been lobbied for between last year and now. And so this is taking us back about a month when the agency bill dropped and it didn't have the fix in it. Alarm bells started ringing. That was kind of the first real strong indication that there was no intention to actually reverse this thing.
Walter, did you think,
Yep.
like, were you given the devil his due? Did you honestly think that they would care about this? The Democrats, they in this circumstance, not Kozlowski. Did you think that they were going to fix this issue in good faith?
So I'm not the person to ask that question to because I was not privy to or included in all of these like quiet, good faith negotiations that were taking place during the interim. I really became keenly aware of this issue at the point in the story that I'm getting to, which is when Harry Niska brought his amendment. First of all, he filed a bill that would fix this, but then he also put that bill in the form of an amendment to bring to this policy bill in the House Judiciary Committee, and this is about 3 weeks or so, or abouts.
Let's pull this up real quick, Dawson.
Yep.
It's Dawson. You go pick up the article on Truth Hurts News. You guys at home could check this out. It's HF 3926, which I think Walter's getting it to, was an amendment on the floor yesterday, and the language basically in this is tweaking the Minnesota Human Rights Act to ensure that there's an exemption based on religious association that does also allow matters relating to, and it's underlined, so it says gender identity on there. Did you find that in the Truth Hurts news article, Dawson?
No.
Scroll, see the blue one there? Sorry, Walter. I want to make sure people get a chance to see it. Go back to Truth Hurts news.
Okay.
And then up on the top right, click on the one with the rainbow flag. There you go, that article. Scroll down to the bottom. You're going to see the final link. Nope, go back up a little bit. Right there, right above there. See HF 3926. And then click on as introduced. See, we got Dawson now. He kind of knows how to navigate bill pages. So this is what you're referring to right here.
Yeah, that's the bill form. And so this, in the form of an amendment, was brought to the House Judiciary Committee about 3 weeks back to try to get it into the Human Rights Department's policy bill. That was voted down along party lines. And then at that meeting, the Democrats went one by one and just berated the 5 different religious testifiers. I mean, we're talking about people representing Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Muslims. I mean, it just didn't matter. They've told us all, the entirety of traditional Abrahamic faith, that we are wrong, bigoted, harmful. We were compared to chattel slavers. Chair Becker Fenn in the Judiciary Committee, she said that this was not an oversight on her part, meaning that she intended to conspire against your First Amendment rights. It was just unbelievable, the display of disdain that these Democrats had towards your First Amendment religious liberties. And so it was supposed to be heard again in the Senate Judiciary Committee, I believe the following week. And it was quietly pulled from the agenda. And we took that, and I say we in the broadest corporate sense of the Republican ecosphere, we took that as a sign that they were feeling the pressure and that they were kind of going back to the whiteboard and were trying to negotiate something with their own members, because this is something that I believe is creating a divide within the Democratic caucuses.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is they can't do anything without throwing their own people under the bus.
I know. I was just thinking, let me guess, Hochschild or Kupek or Putnam are on that committee. I'm guessing one of those three's on that committee, and they didn't want him to have to vote on that thing.
But they did, and they all voted in lockstep with the Democrats,
and
with the party.
And that's the most amazing thing is it's like you have rural Democrats, and we saw this during the lockdown orders. They will get in line. And you know that these people don't really believe it, but they are just being run by the Metro Democrats who are radicalized. I mean, it is insane what these guys believe in. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but they had the Senate committee. They voted in. Continue on the story.
Right. So they pulled it quietly 1 week, and then they reintroduced it the following week, and then they all did the same thing. Like, they doubled down on the stupid and voted against restoring your First Amendment rights. And at that point, there's kind of this exasperation. Now, you had asked me earlier, did I ever really think that in good faith they were going to fix this? Personally, no. However, the broader coalition of faith groups and organizations that were working on this issue, I think people want to believe that the folks who are in charge are fundamentally good, decent people who will listen to reason.
Okay.
You can call that. Yep. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, call it naive. That's what you're going to say, right? And unfortunately,
Yeah.
this is both a problem but a good virtue of people in Minnesota is we tend to trust and believe in our fellow Minnesotan, and that usually serves us well inside of our church, inside of our community. I'm a coach for kids sports, and there's just a general trust you can have, and you can operate that way. But this is politics, baby. You cannot trust these people at all. They have hidden agendas. And so let's do this, Walter. By the way, the church you were talking to, was that the Sunday?
It was this past Sunday. It was Bridgeview Church in Big Lake, Pastor Steve Royalty.
Perfect. Yeah. It's on your Twitter. Well worth going to check that out. Dawson, go back to our article. Well, you started out the conversation with him was, I'm going to say something to you. And you kind of, I could see you guys walking the fine line of, well, this is a church. We shouldn't get too political, but maybe that's another problem that we're having on the right. But I'm going to say, and I think you said something like, I'm going to say something and you're going to almost not believe me, but I guarantee it's true. Okay, so this is the angle we took on our article today at Truth Hurts News. Minnesota Democrats attack religious freedom, make pedophilia sexual orientation human rights act. Now, I wanted to come back to this because we reported on this a year ago, and this is very important for people to understand because, quite frankly, people don't know this is true. But it's just amazing how it comes full circle because the exact issue you're dealing with goes right back to the same provision in what we called the Gun Control and Pedophilia Omnibus Bill. This was passed in a bill that had both a change the Human Rights Act and gun control, the red flag gun seizures and universal background checks. Sorry, we're getting interrupted by a rumble rag.
$5, Razzle Dazzle says, for VIP guest fees like Walter today.
Well, we can't pay a legislator razzle dazzle, but we'll use those funds for the next evening show and beer fund. We'll do that. Well, or we'll give it to Dawson wants it.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I do.
But that, I don't know, Walter. Can we give you a beer if you're in studio for one of those shows? I don't know. By the way, Andy Parrish is in the comment section. He goes, "Walter looks great. How much weight has he lost?"
Oh, he must have not seen me in quite some time because it's been a while since I lost any weight.
Well,
But, yeah.
recognition, right? You look great,
Yeah.
Walter. You do look good. Okay, so scroll back down on this page, Dawson. This is a so this passed. Obviously, Walter, you spoke out about this on the House floor. I think we shared that. This is the part of the Minnesota Human Rights Act called sexual orientation, and so they put sexual orientation quotations, and they actually cross out all the old language of it. Now, in that, the last sentence is, sexual orientation does not include a physical or sexual attachment to children by an adult. They completely removed that. They didn't add that. So what was added is, or what's new in law is, to whom someone is or is perceived of as being emotionally, physically, or sexually attracted to based on sex or gender identity. The word you just talked about right now, which is at the core of this issue. A person may be attracted to men, women, both, neither, or to people who are gender queer, androgynous, or have other gender identities. And then they go on in the next subdivision to actually define gender identity. I didn't watch the whole, I ran out of time watching the whole thing. Did you even bring that up to the church? Like, do people even believe the Democrats did this? Which I think you mentioned Harry Niska earlier. He literally got an amendment passed by the Minnesota House to put that back into the bill, and the Democrats removed it before final passage.
Yes, it's astounding. And the answer to your question is no, we didn't have time to go back and cover that news from last year. But yes, that is another shocking thing that, as you say, it's hard to get people to believe and accept that this is what is happening. This is what is going on in Minnesota with our laws. But as you point to the language, in fact, you still got it up on the screen there. It's so essential to understand what it is that they did by removing that clause that said sexual orientation does not include an adult's sexual attachment to a child. That included by default pedophilia into the definition of sexual orientation, because the definition of sexual orientation, it's right there, is someone who is perceived or is actually emotionally, physically, or sexually attracted to someone based on blah, blah, blah. Well, someone, or the word person, as it previously was, that's inclusive of children. There's no age limiter on that. So if you take out that clause that says we're not talking about kids, then we are talking about kids. Like,
okay.
It's just that simple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So what then the Minnesota Human Rights Act does, and we don't have this on the screen. You can get rid of the screen here, Dawson. Then it is illegal, or it's against the law. No one, I think, gets thrown into prison yet, right? Let's just wait another 5-10 years. That's where they're going with this. Look at Canada. But what happens is you could be criminally liable if you discriminate based on someone's attachment to children. And in the Minnesota Human Rights Act, it says employers, government institutions, schools can't. So the whole issue here to me, and I love how you guys are bringing this up on the gender identity part, it's even more concerning to me that was okay. Now, it's still against the law to act on pedophilia, okay? And I'm maybe I'm naive. I don't think there's a big constituency trying to push a change to that in the next 10 years. But maybe, I would never guess this was an issue 10 years ago. But certainly an open attachment or attractiveness to children, which is disgusting and should be cast in a way where no one stands up for that value. That is I shouldn't even say value. That thinking, that belief, that system of desires, no one should be standing up for that. And yet they do. They take it out of the law. And I don't even know what kind of constituency was standing up for it. Why would they even go after that? Why not specify so apparently in the law that isn't a thing? Okay, getting back to your issue, the gender identity. Where does this come into play then? What are we fearful of, that a transgender pastor, which is probably against the teachings of a certain church, is going to have to be hired? A teacher at a private institution has to be hired. You can't discriminate. Where does this come into play?
Yeah, it comes to play in two forms. So first of all, yes, that's actually happening right now. There is a case, an active open complaint at the Department of Human Rights involving, as I understand it, a religious school over an issue of hiring. That's all I know about it. I'm not privy to the details, but it's an active complaint, which means that the department has received it and is doing something with it. If they didn't see any merit in it, then they would dismiss it. The fact that they haven't dismissed it means they do see merit in it, and they are investigating it and looking into it. So that's one thing that actually affirmatively is happening. But I think the broader issue here, and this was the first question asked by the media when we had a press conference on this yesterday, was, well, are there any examples of this actually harming churches? Which is the stupidest question you could have possibly asked. Yes, when you change the law to create a vulnerability for an organization to be sued untold millions of dollars by literally anybody who walks through the door with a ridiculous claim, yes, that is a harm. The mere existence of that legal vulnerability is unto itself a harm. And that's where we find ourselves, is you have churches like the church I attend. It's paycheck to paycheck, man. It's hand to mouth. We're keeping the lights on. We're keeping the operation going. On an ongoing basis. Our budget is always slim, and we're always working hard to meet it. Somebody comes and sues our church, that's the end of the church, right? We're not going to have the money to pursue that unless the help comes from outside. And so what this does is it creates an environment that chills free speech, chills hiring decisions, places people in a situation where they're going to self-censor in order to avoid the wrath of the activists. Think of the cake baking case applied to hiring decisions in churches.
Exactly. All right. I want to be respectful of your time. I know you sandwiched this between two meetings, so thank you so much for tuning in or joining us, and for everyone that's tuning in. We're definitely going to have you back, and I want to stay on top of this. Obviously, there's still, a month and a half left of the legislative session, roughly a little over a month and a half. So this will probably get stuck in an omnibus bill, a policy bill, as you said, and this will be a big showdown. Before we let you go, Walter, I heard you are running for governor. Is this true?
I think they want it so badly. The left, the Democrats, the media, they want it so badly because they probably have 5 people in a room somewhere busily doing opposition research, bookmarking all of my tweets and videos and what have you. They would love for that to happen. I don't know that I'm going to make it that easy for them in 26. So.
You're a white supremacist and a far-right extremist. There's just no way we could have you. It would ruin the party. Well, it's good having you on the show, and too bad we weren't able to do another season of Icebreakers. I called it Ice Fishing Diaries, and then Dawson had the idea we should call it Icebreakers after I already done the intro. So go ahead.
We have a $10 Rumble rant from failed candidate. Walter, thank you for all your efforts.
There you go. I really wonder who failed candidate is.
JL Jazz says Walter Hudson for governor. Do it.
Oh, there you go. You got one vote. I think you probably have more than that.
Billy 22, keep up the fight, Walter. Razzle Dazzle says, thanks, Walter. Try to get Harry on as well. He articulated the amendment so well in committee.
And then Razzle Dazzle says Walter for governor.
Yep.
By the way, where was that rumor? Was that like a Reform article? He has to be running for governor.
that, as I understand it, that was like what's called the morning take, where they have like a summary of news from the previous day. And that was after I got up and left a committee hearing in public safety because I couldn't stand Aisha Gomez lying out of both sides of her mouth about supporting law enforcement when she so clearly does not. And so, of course, they're not going to actually write about the content of what we were talking about. They're going to write about, my behavior. We have such a joke media in this state. It's unbelievable.
Oh, it's very believable to us. But that's what gives us a marketplace, right? If they were doing a good job, we wouldn't have a show.
That's exactly what I say. I say, because I get accused of, you're just looking for viral moments. You know how you can shut me up? Press, do your job.
Yeah.
Democrats, stop violating rights. And there'll be no market for what I do.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much, Walter, and keep fighting the good fight up there.
Will do. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is so right. People are just going to hear what he's saying, and they'll be like, there's no way that's true. You guys saw language right there on the pedophilia stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, what is the group advocating for that bullshit?
Yeah.
Someone in the comments earlier said MAPS, the minor attracted people.
Yeah, and we put that in our article.
Messed up.
Gregory Reno, I prefer pansexual cakes. Oh, yeah, we're Andy causing some... By the way, I want to get Andy on the show. Andy was good. Andy and I did radio in college. In fact, you guys probably didn't know this. We did radio 2 years, AM, was it 88.7 or something like that on River Falls campus. And then I took over the show the first semester of senior, and they kicked me off air two shows in. So I'm more extreme than Andy. There you go. All right, we're gonna go do an extended show on locals. Shit, come on, Jake. Remember what it's called? Locals. Okay, so to do this, well, I guess it's only to our paid subscribers, $8 a month. If you want to be part of our exclusive after show, it's a lot of fun, by the way. I get a lot more relaxed and open about some of the secrets and rumors that are going around. So if you really want some of the good insider information, be part of our after show. You could just click on the Rumble. There's a join button, a red join button. You can even pay for a year in advance. We're going to try to bring you guys exclusive content, a lot of cool things, because we're partnering with Locals, which is a social media company that's partnered with Rumble. Okay, so it's Bridget's on it too, by the way. Now I understand. Oh, we got a Rumble app for you.
JL Jess says this is for Bridget. Hope that I spelled that correctly. There is an extra T and an E, but that's okay. For putting up with Jake swearing today.
Well, that's fair, Jen. That is fair. I'm sorry. I get a little motivated I get a little pissed at corruption. That's the thing. So, we had some topics we didn't get to today here. We're trying to keep these main shows down to an hour, just because I think it's easier for most audiences to do an hour. Andy Parrish, 88.7 WRFW. That's right. Oh, you got something about DeSantis social media for minors. Okay, we'll get into that. And MNGO retirements. Oh, boy, we got a lot of good stuff. All right, so click on that red button on Locals if you want to join our after show. And thank you guys for tuning in. This show is brought to you by Warren Wessel, Warren Wessel Realty. Give Warren a call, 612-419-7453 if you're buying or selling a home. And also give your business, your cabinetry business, to Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud. Thank you very much. And for those on Locals, we'll be right back. Or not.
I'm screwing it up.
It's still new to us.
That
right?
one's on me.
No, it's okay.